I'm Felicia,
And I'm Ian.
and we are the Paranormal Lovers.
Hello, paranormal dudes, dudettes, and dudays. Welcome back to another episode of the Paranormal Lovers.
Hi guys,
Hey guys,
how's it going?
how you doing?
Welcome back to another week of the Paranormal Lovers. Can you see my face? Can you see his face? You can see our faces.
Hey,
Hi.
this is what we look like.
This is
This is our pod lab.
Sorry about the shiny window back here. Yeah. Let's see. Episode 27. What'd you love about this week, babe?
I liked a lot of things last weekend. Patty got a lot of firsts last weekend.
Yeah, that's right. You
I
guys
did a
went to the
horrible
lake.
job taking care of her, but
Ah,
she didn't die. So
well, then you did a great job taking care of her. She's alive.
sounds like my mic's louder than normal.
It is a little loud, but that's all right. I love that we actually get to record this week.
Yeah,
Sorry about missing last week, guys. My mental illness has been kicking my ass lately, a lot, and it just got away from me.
we were super busy. My cousin was here. Shout out to my cousin.
Hey,
You are an
Ariel!
awesome person.
We love you so much.
Stay you.
Can't wait till you come back. I want to shout out Supernatural with Ashley Flowers. That is my main source for this episode. I highly recommend going to give that pod a listen because she goes like really in depth on this case. It's actually her first episode for that podcast. And I don't go as in depth as she does on some of the points in this case. I'd highly recommend listening to it. And honestly, the whole podcast, it was great. Like all the topics are amazing.
Right.
I do have this episode linked in the source notes, so go check that out. Let's see. So today we're going to talk about the lead mask case.
Lead mask.
Masks.
Masks.
I don't know how to say mask plurally. It just sounds like it should just be mess.
Masks.
Masks. My mouth doesn't want to do it. All right. On August 20th, 1966, a young Jorge da Costa Alvarez was flying kites near some hills outside of, in Rio de Janeiro, when he spots two bodies laying on a hill. The two men are dressed in similar suits and are wearing matching raincoats. They are both lying on their backs with their hands under their heads, like they just laid down to stargaze or something and fell asleep.
Sure.
For eternity. Found with the two bodies are a water bottle, a receipt for said water bottle, a packet of wet wipes, a few pages of notes, and two sets of lead glasses. Now, when you think about these glasses, think of like the one style of glasses I really hate, those like wraparound glasses.
Like the 80s glasses?
Like Terminator.
Sure.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Like Macho Man glasses.
Yeah. Pretty much, but they were kind of bigger and stuff, so by the time law enforcement made it to the scene many hours later, reporters had already flooded the area, walked all over the crime scene, probably touching all kinds of shit, and even taking pictures of the bodies. And I want to say that in the podcast, I think she said that like they had called them, but they didn't show up till the next day. Which, I mean, I don't know. Brazil in the 60s. I don't know.
Right.
Now, the victims were 32-year-old Manuel Pereira de Cruz and 34-year-old Miguel Jose Vina. Both men were electronic technicians from Campos dos Goitacazes. Some 175 miles away from like the major city of Rio de Janeiro. On August 17th, the two men had left for the day, telling their families they were going to possibly buy some electronic parts, as well as check out a used car in Sao Paulo, which is 5 hours from their home.
Right.
I ain't never went 5 hours to look at a used car.
I mean, you can find some cheaper ones like that.
You definitely can. I know people around here will go to like Tennessee or South Carolina, but even that's only like an hour or two away.
Right.
5 hours that would be like us driving down to the beach just to look at a car.
Yeah.
It's a long way. When they left, they had, and I'm not going to try, I looked at the conversion. The way money works in Brazil, or has worked since the 1960s, is very flippin' confusing.
I bet.
But they left with roughly about 2 to 3 thousand US dollars. But
Right.
when their bodies were found, they only had about 5 or 10% of that money on their bodies.
So they got jacked.
Well, we don't know. We don't know.
Right.
Instead of getting on a bus to Sao Paulo, when their friend dropped them at the bus station, they boarded a bus for Niterói. Their first stop was an electronics store, but they didn't buy anything. Kind of like walked in, looked around, left. Didn't even talk to the clerk. And since it had started raining, their next stop was a local clothing shop to buy 2 raincoats. But what makes this interaction strange is that they didn't even take the time to put the coats on before they left. They paid for them and ran out the door. Very strange.
Yeah, that's weird.
The next place they are noticed is at a bar where Miguel buys the bottle of water. When questioned, an employee stated that the men seemed nervous, like they were waiting on a specific time, and Miguel kept eyeing the clock. After this, the 2 men were next spotted being dropped off about 5 p.m. at Ventim Hill by 3 men in a Jeep, who were likely the last people to see these 2 men alive. And, it's all great and fun and dandy that they know, what led up to them going up to this hill, but it doesn't help them at all figuring out how they died.
Right.
Ignore my facial expressions. The coroner did an autopsy on both bodies that concluded that neither man had any sign of trauma. There were no bullet wounds, there were no stab wounds, there was nothing. There was no internal damage, nothing.
So they couldn't figure out why they died?
No. There wasn't even signs that animals had attacked the body, which is interesting because their bodies had laid on that hill for 3 days.
Wow.
Before they were found.
Yeah, they should have been ripped to shreds.
Yeah, you would think. But the animals, most people know animals are able to sense things that humans cannot.
Sure.
So I feel like maybe there was something they were like, I don't know. And I'm not sure if they did a toxicology report or a toxicology test. This was the 1960s, and whether you're in Brazil or, the US, technology wasn't as advanced back then.
Sure.
But then there was also the possibility that with the bodies having been left out for so long, exposed to the elements, that there wasn't really any way for them to get a good test sample to run a toxicology report. So that was never, it was either never done or the results were just inconclusive.
Yeah.
Ruling out murder as a cause, which I don't know if they ever actually ruled it out, but they were like, okay, well, we don't think they died like this, so let's look at suicide.
Sure.
But there are a few things that contradict this theory. For one, the water bottle and receipt. And I don't know about if they still have the program today, but we've had a few programs like that in this country where if you return the bottle, you'll get 5-10 cents for it.
Yeah.
And they're thinking he kept the receipt and the bottle because he had every intention of returning it on his way home.
Sure.
He just never got around to it. And then there were the notes that were found. You'll like this one. The first page had a list of electronic parts as well as the equation E equals IR. Do you know what that equation is?
I have no clue.
You should know. It's Ohm's law. Yeah.
Right on. Law of resistance.
Yeah. The next page seemed to be a set of instructions for taking some kind of medication. It's almost seemed to be someone had written down notes while someone verbally gave them the instructions.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a quote: Sunday, 1 tablet after meal. Monday, 1 tablet in the morning on an empty stomach. Tuesday, 1 tablet after the meal. Wednesday, 1 tablet before bedtime. End quote. Now, that last tablet on Wednesday would have been taken shortly before the men died, quite possibly while they were at the hill. But again, can't really tell from the toxicology report because it either wasn't done or it was inconclusive.
Right.
So we don't know what they were taking those days.
Yeah.
The last note includes this quote. Quote, 1630, be it determined location. 1830, swallow capsules after the effect, protect metal, wait for mass signal. End quote.
Huh.
Now, also keep in mind that this is being translated from Portuguese.
Yeah.
So translation may be off, but that's pretty much what they got from it.
Yeah.
Now, on to the interesting evidence of the mask. Like I said, they kind of remind me of those wraparound glasses. They're a little bit bigger, but they really only cover this much of their eyes. And they go like this. They are homemade from solid lead. There's no eye hole, there's no lenses. It's solid lead.
Huh.
And now, as most of us paranormal weirdos know, lead is known to block radiation.
Sure.
But these didn't do a great job of protecting literally anything on their face but their eyes.
Yeah.
So it's like if you're trying to protect your head from radiation, you might want to, I don't know, helmet?
Yeah.
So why just
a blanket?
Why just mask? And what's even more bizarre about this case is that 4 years prior to Miguel and Manoel being found out on that hill, another man had gone to a hill, and I don't remember if it's the same hill or a different one, and taken some kind of drugs, possibly a psychedelic, because he believed that he could open his mind to receive radio and TV signals. And he was also found dead.
Wow.
So the investigators reopened that first case to see if they could find anything to tie it to the two cases, the second case, but they found nothing other than the fact that all the men were electronic technicians.
That's pretty weird.
That is very weird.
It's like most psychedelics won't kill you, like no matter how much you take.
Yeah,
Like,
I touch on that a little bit more, but it is very hard to overdose on a psychedelic.
Yeah.
Unless you're doing, some shitty psychedelics.
I mean, you can get psychosis from it, by taking large amounts, but
yeah, but it's not like you're just gonna like pop a pill, taking some, and then lay down and just die.
Well, I mean, most psychedelics, I think maybe the only one that I know of that can be kind of dangerous is DMT because it can cause you to stop breathing.
And that is also possible. And they are in Brazil, which is that where the ayahuasca place is at? The ayahuasca retreat?
Well, there's some in South America, but I'm not sure if it's like in Brazil,
right?
Specifically, but
it's an interesting thing, but yeah. So
ayahuasca does come from the jungles of South America, but
yeah. Okay. During the investigation, excuse me, it is found that Miguel had actually ran into his niece on the day that they had died. After she questioned his story about traveling 5 hours to look at a used car, he admitted to her that they were doing something super, super secret, but he couldn't tell anybody about what it was. But he did tell her that once he was back, he would let her know whether or not he believed in Spiritism. Spiritism is the third largest religion in Brazil.
Yeah.
And just a quick thing, Spiritism pretty much believes that every person has a spirit and you can communicate with people whose spirits have passed on after death. It's like a special place that they all go. Some people call it heaven, whatever. But you can actually contact with them. And this is where I recommend listening to the Supernatural episode about this case the most, because Ashley really goes in depth on spiritism and how it can tie into this case as well.
Right.
I ain't gonna do all that because I just didn't. I didn't. Now, during the investigation, a book about scientific spiritism was found in one of the men's apartments. In it had highlighted sections about intense luminosity, spirits, and mask. While investigators were hoping to go in a less strange direction, I'm sure the reports that started coming in after this led them even further down this wild path of investigation they were going.
Sure.
The first report came in from a woman who was driving down the road with some of her kids. As they are driving by Ventim Hill, they notice an orange oval object hovering over the hill. The object is surrounded by fire, and they could watch it rise and fall, and it would shoot blue light out from all around it.
Aliens!
Right. After this report got leaked, many other people started calling in to report that they had witnessed the exact same thing happening on that hill on that night. Investigators questioned Miguel's wife again, which led them to pay a visit to the friend that had dropped the two men off at the bus station. This is when they learned that not only were the men into spiritism, but they, along with many other people in the area who believed in spiritism, were part of a secret spiritism society. Dun, dun, dun. One of the things this man and the victims did was they ran experiments to try and contact life on Mars. In their minds, if there is life on other planets, then that life has a spirit, and those spirits can be contacted.
Sure.
Most of the time, well, I won't say most of the time, but usually it happens within a trance-like state. And sometimes that trance-like state will be aided with, or will be helped out, will be aided by the use of psychedelics, like LSD.
Sure.
And other fun, trippy shit. The first time they tried to make contact, the machine they had built did nothing but shake violently until it exploded. And I believe they had done this in Miguel's backyard.
Huh.
Fun.
Right.
The second time, they decided to move to a beach to test out the machine. This time, a bright light descended over the beach, where witnesses reported seeing it bob up and down over the beach, and there were several people that called in and witnessed this. Before it rose into the sky and shot out a bright flash of light before it exploded.
Huh.
In both instances, men found a fine powder covering everything after the explosion, which in their mind was like aliens.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the night before the second explosion, the Brazilian Navy had picked up chatter from 3 separate ham radios that were not registered to anyone within the entire country of Brazil. It is thought that Miguel and Manoel ran a secret radio station, so it is thought that at least one of the radio signals was from them.
Right.
But no one ever found out who was using the 2 other radios. With everything investigators have uncovered, it is thought that the men had taken some form of psychedelics to enter a trance-like state so they could receive light messages.
Right.
And while there were no machines found with the bodies, one theory was that they could have been electrocuted if they had been using one in the rain.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if the machines if they actually still had the machines after the first two explosions, if the machines exploded. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
Um, but the light messages could be why they made those thick lead masks.
Sure.
Because they would say that when you receive these type of messages, the light would be so bright, it would like burn your eyeballs.
Yeah.
Aliens, angels.
Sure.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of, you remember in Supernatural when like all the people would see the angel's like true face, and it would burn their eyes out of their sockets.
Yeah.
That's what it made me think of.
Kind of makes me think of Close Encounters of the Third Kind. You ever seen that movie?
Never seen it.
The guy there, when he gets abducted, well, not abducted, but like when he sees the alien ship that comes like straight over him, he like he goes home and he's got like the sunburn and he's got a spot where his glasses were. He had those 80s glasses and it was just like a spot like this that was it was just white. And then the rest of his skin was sunburnt.
Well, that is interesting.
Because like the light was so bright on top of his car because he was in his car.
Yeah.
The light was so bright that he was just like, oh.
Right, that makes sense. Let's see. There's also, like we said earlier, the thought that their deaths could have been caused by an overdose, although it is extremely rare with psychedelics.
Yeah.
Or possibility that if someone had given them those instructions to take that medicine at a certain time, it's possible that somebody could have changed it out for a poison.
Could have.
But again, with no toxicology report,
there's no way of telling.
We don't know.
Right. Well, I do know that LSD, psilocybin mushrooms, all of those psychedelics, mescaline, there's like no way of overdosing on them. I mean, you
definitely fry your brain the fuck if you take too much of it.
You can definitely go into like a permanent psychosis if you take too much of them. You'll be, scared that you're going to turn into a banana peel or something like that. That's the one that I always heard. But
people are afraid they're going to turn into a banana peel.
Well, this one guy thought he had turned into a banana peel.
Oh my!
He was scared of people. Like he wouldn't get close to anybody because like he was scared that they would peel him.
Did he think he was like a whole ass banana?
Yeah. I guess he was eating a banana whenever he did too much.
Oh my, that's an interesting one.
That's the one I always heard, like in my group of friends way back in high school.
God, I've never had a trip like that because that would not be fun. Okay, and so of course they still think that there could have been a murder. A lot of the evidence seems to point to these two men working with or for someone to do these experiments.
Sure. Sounds like a group of people.
Right. The three men that dropped the victims off with the Jeep have never been identified. No one knows who it is. So they think that there's a possibility that they were involved in it, in the society, in the experiment, something. But again, we'll just never know.
Right.
Also, if someone had killed them for their money, they didn't get all of it.
Right. They just took some of it.
Yeah, I mean, they took most of it, but there was still a good chunk left. You'd think if they were going to rob them for their money, they would take all of it.
Right.
But me personally, and this is probably the hardest theory for most people to accept, skeptics and people that just don't want to believe in stuff like that.
Sure.
Maybe their experiment worked.
Maybe.
It is thought that for some people, once your spirit is able to reach that level of consciousness,
doesn't need the body anymore.
It can make the decision to not return to the body and will sever the connection, effectively killing you.
Yeah.
Because, sure, you can live, on life support if you have no soul, if you're brain dead, but your body's just not going to function.
Right.
You're not going to know to eat, go to the bathroom, do anything like that. Your body's just there.
Yeah.
So effectively, you're dead.
Yeah.
And maybe it was possible. Maybe they made contacts, and once their spirits saw the universe unfold before them, they just decided human form was not for them.
Right.
And cut their ties with the physical world. I want to say that I believe in the episode Ashley does talk about sometimes when she's talking about the whole spiritism thing, it's like, not necessarily that you go into it thinking, oh, I'm just gonna, my spirit's gonna leave and go bye-bye. Think of people that like astral project and stuff like that. They're not thinking, I'm just gonna go out here and see what it's like and let my soul free. Sometimes your soul just says, oh, you know what? This is a lot better than that bullshit we were just dealing with.
Right.
Deuces.
Yeah.
So I believe it is possible that they were successful in their experiment and their spirits just cut ties with their bodies.
Sure.
But really, none of us will ever know unless we want to reach that level and see if we can find out for ourselves.
That's what's interesting about psychedelics.
Mm-hmm.
Especially people that do DMT.
Yeah.
They go to this whole other realm.
Yeah. It's kind of scary.
Have like the answers to everything there. But then like when you come back, you don't remember any of it. So it's like, but your subconscious knows that you found out these, lifelong answers.
So it's like having an ego death, but not knowing why your ego's dead.
Kinda, yeah.
You're like, oh, well, I feel normal-ish, but I'm not really sure why.
I know Adam, the guy on YouTube, talks about it all the time. He's like, I always like feel bad when I come back because I've like known these answers and I've now forgotten all of them. And it's like, I know they're still in there somewhere. I just want to, it makes him want to go back and get the answers again because he just wants those answers, the thirst for knowledge.
I really feel like that honestly, like that feeling of knowing that you know something and not being able to remember
drives him crazy.
Drives me insane.
Right.
Like that is one of my major problems with whatever undiagnosed neuro disorder that I have.
Sure.
It's just because I know shit. I know how to do it. Just don't remember how to do it.
Yeah.
So frustrating. All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining us this week. If you would like, you can head on over to Instagram and follow us at The Paranormal Lovers. You can head on over to YouTube and see our beautiful faces at The Paranormal Lovers. And if you have any stories that you would like to send in, you want to shoot us a message, or if you have a topic request, send us an email at theparanormallovers@yahoo.com.
Like, comment, and subscribe.
And all that jazz. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you next time.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.